YouTube. It's Brian Phillips. We have something special for you right here. Ooh boy. What is it? May have something to do with what you've seen on the thumbnail, but I don't know for sure. So we're gonna find out. And if you read really quick, you can see what just went by, and I'm sure, but I'm gonna try to go really fast so you can't. Now you can see that. You already know what it is. This thing is gonna be awesome. It's just basically another of the latest re-releases from E-flite. We're gonna hear nothing but the end. Oh, it's another P-47, amazing! It's got the swirly turd on it, look.
It's got what?
Yes, the 1.2 meter Razorback. This is Esteban's favorite plane. He's gonna be so jealous. Esteban, my buddy.
You can come over here and fly with us.
You can come over and fly it, Esteban.
Well.
But yes, well.
You can come fly with us, I said.
With us. Good point. So anyway, guys, this is evidently a re-release because it's got safe and smart and stuff like that. So this is an early sample, so forgive us if there's anything that's not quite right, like they screwed up the manual or whatever, I don't know. We never know on that stuff. So this is gonna be amazing. The 1.2 meter is one of my favorites. This one is a big 1.2 meters. It is 47.2 inches. It looks like it's got all the features that we've seen in the other 1.2s. So we're gonna open this thing without further ado, because as you know, we didn't too long ago, we just did a 1.5 and it was okay, but this one's gonna be awesome. And I think I might have even mentioned it in there, and that was before I knew this was coming. So really exciting. So anyway, all right, without further ado, here we go. P-47 Razorback. Oh yes. Here it is. It's in the packaging. It's so amazing. Lots of foam to protect the foam from the foam so the foam doesn't damage the foam on the cardboard. Ugh, that is a long box. It just keeps going forever. So, and also it just reminds me, because I got one of those Facebook things that had a picture of the kids standing next to the box. Did you see that one?
Was that the P-47?
Yeah, it was a P-47.
Oh, I didn't even pay attention.
No, it wasn't a P-47. It's P-51, I think. No, it was the F4U Corsair.
That's right.
So anyway, without further ado, we're gonna keep getting into this, but it was just so funny because the kids were like not even as high as the box.
Yeah, our two oldest kids were shorter than the box.
They're bigger than that now.
Yep.
Okay, so we're just gonna start cutting things open right now. We've got the wing spar for the horizontal stabilizer. As you can see, it is hollow and strong, okay? So that's gonna be for the horizontal stab. I can't tell if that sticks through from the bottom. Yeah, it sticks through from the bottom. It is the mount for the, I think the missiles, the rocket pods, sorry guys, forgive me for saying that wrong. And we have a manual that's unfolded, thank you. Thank you, whoever packed that on an unfolded, good job. You get an A+ for the day, okay? So we're just gonna keep going. Looks like we got some rocket pods here. And if I remember right, this has rocket pods, guns, and drop tanks. Okay, so we got some guns here. And then the front half of the spinner, kind of weird, a couple of stars. That's a little strange. Okay. Then we have the, I think that's a pitot tube. But yeah, that one will be the first thing to break off. And then the other half of the spinner assembly, some screws. If you could look at my nut and bolt sack there, camera crew. Oh yeah, look at that bomb, so sweet. Oh, that's awesome. As you can see, we've got silver paint on this one. So these ones actually are detachable bombs.
Oh, that's really cool.
If I recall, the whole rail came off of the P-47 before, and it looks now like it's on there sort of a permanent fixture. I don't recall that, but there again, this is one of the very few planes I never actually had. Because no, we never had this. It was always Esteban's.
Really?
We never did this. It was one of the very few planes that we never did. Huh. But we did tons of footage on it because Esteban had it. And this was vintage before we were working with Horizon.
Oh yeah, for sure.
On the first go round. So sweet rocket pods here. Looks totally cool. So we'll put those down here. You guys can enjoy the ordnance. Now, sometimes on these World War II planes, I found that the ordnance is less of an impact on the flight performance than some of the more recent vintage planes that have just a lot of stuff hanging off of them. Like for instance, this J11 here, you know, it's got tons of ordnance on it. And while it does look totally sweet, that'd be the same as like the Su-27. or the SU-30 back when E-flite was doing theirs, it had a ton of ordnance on it too. And it adversely affects the performance of the plane. You need a little bit more thrust, I think, to keep up with that extra drag. I mean, they'll fly, but it just takes a lot of pep out of the step, so to speak. Beautiful. Oh yes, there must be a drop tank somewhere in there because there's also a hook point in the center. So I don't know if you can just like hook the bomb in the center.
Over there in the corner of your package.
Oh
storage.
yeah, there it is.
Yep.
I knew there was one more thing. So obviously you can see the dihedral on there, beautiful little scale details like these rivet lines. Of course the guns are gonna go here, so you can't see that yet. And it is a silver wing on top. I thought that there were invasion stripes on the top before. Now there's invasion stripes on the bottom. I actually can't tell if this is different because I remember I used to always make fun of the tornado on the side thinking it looks like a toilet that's like, you know, flushing turds. And it looks like a little Hanky the Christmas poo in there. But I'm sure whoever designed that squadron art is gonna be super offended, so my apologies. I don't know any better, please forgive me. Because that probably means something super, it's the Kansas Tornado. That's weird, they usually change that livery when they re-release.
They release them?
I think that's the same. So I guess we're gonna find out, or maybe they just have totally re-released it and they just switched out the receiver, which Horizon did that on the P-51 when they went to the June 9th. And now we're up to the Cripes Almighty. Because remember when they went from the AR-636 A or B? Oh yeah, to the actual new AR-631.
Yeah,
631, yeah, whatever it is, the current one.
Yep.
Okay, so absolutely gorgeous. Looks beautiful. Good venting back here. Love the look of the P-47, especially in the Razorback. Looks super cool. And then as you can see, we got the good pilot, good venting here so we can get a lot of fogging. And then I like how this green wraps all the way around. That's really nice. Although I must say, a little bit of sloppiness on the trim work on the model here. Not real thrilled with that, but not anything that I can't live with. Oh, that is hard to pop free. But I'm glad they put the piece of tape on there already. That's super nice. And as you can see, we got the AR-631, and you can see that that pocket was bigger at one point. See? And so they must have overhauled this. So that might explain why they actually have the same markings on this. So I'm not sure if they're gonna, at some point later on, release a different livery. But for now, that's what we've got. And I have no complaints because I never had a problem with the way it looked. I think it looks sweet. I just can't say with certainty if it's different because I never had that, so I can't say. I never paid that close attention to Esteban's.
We'll have to ask him.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got the horizontal stab here. Looks pretty much par for the course. Horizontal stab here. Of course, these things pair up together like this, and that keeps the elevator assembly together. A little bit of dirtiness here. Little kind of swath there. But I mean, that's kind of what we're used to seeing on these foamies. They're never 100% perfect, but we get pretty good perfection once they're in the air, in my opinion, because these things look amazing. Okay, cool. So I always forget the joiner rod, so we'll just put that in now. All right, so we're gonna take a second, clean up, and come right back for the build. Right after we finish the rest of the unbox. Camera crew caught that. Ooh, sweet. I don't remember this drop tank. Again, maybe he didn't have it on there, but that drop tank looks different. Sweet looking, really cool. Okay, cool. So we'll put that next to the ordnance, and then there is some more nut and bolt sacks over here, or prop or something. Yeah, it looks like the prop. Now these things historically have gone on a an 8.5 by 10 four-bladed prop. Let's see if that's what they used on this one. Yeah, 10.58 painted tips, just like the P-51.
Yep.
Okay,
Nice.
So that's good. Now it's also the same as another couple of birds, but I can't think of them offhand. I thought there was, oh, P-47 also uses, I think, the exact same size. Okay, so that's sweet. And my understanding is that this used to be a 1 point, almost like 4 or 1.3. It was bigger, but this one is almost exactly spot on 1200 millimeters on the wingspan. So, all right, without further ado, we'll clean up, come back for the build. All right, so first things first, we're just gonna accidentally trip. Whoa, 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 it cut off the safety warning. Dang it. By the way, be careful, don't cut your fingers, don't cut your hands or your face or any of those things. That would suck. Okay, I noticed there is no smart lead on this, which is kind of weird.
Oh.
Not sure why that is. It's definitely an avian ESC from what I can tell. And although, yeah, it's in port 1, that's really weird. But then they have this, which is, we've learned that yellow wire, if this isn't an Avian ESC, is usually a programming port. So we're gonna find out. But either way, while we're at it, inside of here, we're gonna look at this. 2200 through 3200, 3 or 4S. We are opting for only 4S on this, and we are charging a bunch of 4S, 2 of which are 50C, 2 of which are 30C, and a little bit puffed, and then a bunch of 2200 4S's. So we'll probably show 2200 and 3200 in the maidens, I would assume, and we'll probably show the 50C on the 3200 because that happens to be in better shape in our case, and then the 30C on the 2200. But we're gonna put some shelf liner in there because ours didn't come with a Velcro, but I think that was the early sample guys forgot and accidentally put it on their battery and forgot to throw it back in the package. So my apologies for them since they did that rudely. So I'm just gonna stick this right here. Yeah, that looks about right. And so all I do is I will take a strip of what normally would be included, and I just, you know, put it onto my shelf liner like this. And yes, we have a whole nother roll of it. It's amazing.
I thought you were gonna say what normally would be garbage, is what you meant to say.
No, normally you would put this onto your battery and it would help stabilize the battery. And to be honest with you, you guys know I do aerobatics and all that stuff. We never have any problems. Okay, so sticking this, do you want to give them a nice shot of this here, camera crew? Amazing. This is some complicated stuff. I stuck it down. It's tough. Sticky, double-sided sticky, single-sided sticky. And this is not Velcro, it's hook and loop, okay? Yeah, I refuse to use brand names like Velcro.
Put that in a Ziploc bag while you're at it.
Listen, don't get me in trouble with Procter & Gamble and Johnson & Johnson. You should send some for us to test.
Yeah.
You guys may not know this, but my mom used to work for Procter & Gamble before she died of breast cancer. So, all right, there you go. All right, there you go. So there's that. That holds the battery. And that once those two, this is like the mid quality. It's not the lowest quality. It's not the highest. But I can tell that they aren't stuck. That's the important part. So let's see if this one's stuck. This is just a big pet peeve of mine. When these things get glued, oh yeah, they're both free. Nice. What's so important about them being free is you can put different size batteries. You can get the strap where you want it, okay? So we had to include the Velcro. My guess is you won't have to, but you're not gonna get the shelf liner. But I do wanna just take a second and talk about shelf liner because shelf liner to me is an important commodity that you should probably have at least a roll like this. And if you guys don't know where to get this stuff, hit us up in the comments. We'll throw you guys a link for Amazon. If you don't already know how to find stuff on Amazon, just click on our link down there and buy that stuff and you'll help support the channel. I mean, seriously, you will.
It does.
But it's also really nice to have and we use the heck out of it. And I actually stole the shelf liner out of this drawer, so every time you open and close it, it sounds like somebody's tool shop falling out. So we should probably redo that.
Your tool shop is over there in that drawer.
And downstairs, and in the garage, and in my truck.
Yep.
Okay, ready to go. So we've got that thing done, super easy peasy. Now we're gonna flip this thing over. Isn't that why? Were you saying I wanted to flip this over for some reason?
You always start with the tail. This is so easy, I could build it.
Yeah, this build is actually really easy, guys. It's a limited number of pieces.
Yep.
Should be really easy. You do need some foam to foam or a chain of glue of some kind.
You said you were gonna glue.
You can use CA if you want, if you're into that sort of thing. And you have some. It's ridiculous how many planes I have. I have like no good CA. My CA has gotten so old that it's like, I refuse to work, even with kicker. Okay, so we're just gonna slide that shaft into the hole. And then there's a trick to kind of getting these started. It looks like the paint's sort of worn off there, which is good. So when they jig this up, they didn't paint that. A lot of times the manufacturers paint that real heavy. And it makes it hard to slide in like that, okay? So you can see this is gonna go where that goes. And then this side over here. Kind of the same thing, very, very easy assembly. You won't have any problems assembling this thing. Slide it all the way in. Now, I must say, when we get the early samples, the samples are usually built by product development and then taken apart to ship to us. So we will get things like these dents and dings that you guys probably won't see, okay? The reason for that is because somebody else put them together and you just won't have that problem. We did. Okay, So we got a couple of black screws here. These black screws, they look like wood screws. They're actually plastic screws. And I just need to get my handy dandy little screw holder thing that you cannot buy on Amazon or anywhere else because I built it myself and it's amazing. But what you can do is you can buy like an e-bike from Brian Phillips RC's links. And then within the e-bike, they'll come with some foam like that. And that stuff is how I use that. Okay, hold on. I got to get a bigger one. This is a 3mm, which by the way, the Chinese have decided to call them out in millimeters, which is the only people who do that. Nobody else does that. Everybody else has like a Phillips number 1, Phillips number 2, Phillips 1.5, Phillips 0, Phillips 0.25. And that's because it is, after all, a standard measurement with a standard tool, okay? Make no mistake, Phillips is standard. That's right, especially if your name is Phillips. Brian Phillips RC. All right, guys, so we got one in and we're going for 2. Super easy peasy, no problems there. Decent hardware, nothing special, nothing superior or inferior about this method. It's definitely better than gluing. The only thing I like better is if they would use a hex screw. Yes, you can get self-tapping or machine style or wood style screws with a hex drive. And that would have been better, at least as far as I can tell, because if you have a hex drive, there's less slippage. Like this. Like this, okay. So that's a 2mm. Whoop, boop. And then there's no slippage, which is nice. Again, kind of a preference issue. When these planes get to where they're so good that our complaints are the type of hardware, then that's usually a good sign. Now, that being said, we have had planes that had significant hardware issues. Namely, one of my favorites, the Carbon Z-Cub, had some terrible screws on the landing gear. Do you remember that?
I do.
It was quite the fiasco, in fact. And then we put on the pneumatic tires. Oh, by the way, you guys probably have to glue this in. Mine's already glued in.
About that
oh, no. No, it was in the box that way, so I don't think we would have to glue it in. Otherwise, you would. Because like on the P-51, you do have to glue it in. Mm-hmm. On the F4U Corsair, you do. Not that it matters. But, okay, so let's talk about the wing for a minute. The wing comes with flaps. They're a nice, simple mechanism. It's got this beautiful slot finish to it, but it's not actually a slotted flap, it's just a tape hinge. But they are very effective, and you will find that to be true when you fly it. But gorgeous. Now, we've got Y cables already installed. Again, I don't know for sure that you're gonna have to install yours. There's ailerons, there's gear, and there's flaps, okay? So there's 3 sets of dual cables, and then these just need to be fed through. So now paying attention carefully as I do this, there's no slot to go into. This one just goes straight down. And so it makes it quite easy to do this. But if you're careful the way you do it, it's really easy. Just guide those wires in. Now, if you're not like me and you have to take this thing apart to carry it to every flight field you go fly at, I'm really sorry because that sucks that you have to take this apart. This is not a huge plane. You should be able to get it in most cars. But some people that have really, really small cars might struggle. I don't know, this is not an overly big car.
No, it's not.
1.2 meters can usually go into most cars, okay? Or SUVs or trucks, okay? All right, so there's the 3 sets of wires. We're just gonna lay those in here. So obviously we'll get to the radio setup shortly. We can show you how to set up AS3X safe and all that good stuff, which should come preset because this is a bind and fly, which means that when you get your transmitter, you bind up to the plane, and we'll show you exactly how to do that shortly. And then you're done. It's just all set, and you do a couple of different settings just on where you want your switches to run things, and we'll show you exactly how to do that too. All right, so one of the screws. Okay, so how do you know it's making purchase? You can watch and see if it's walking, which mine was, but it's starting to pull this down. Is it? Yes, 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 yes. Awesome. Okay, so you might be thinking to yourself from a mechanic's perspective, shouldn't you be doing like a star pattern or something like that? Yeah, whatever. You can't really always do that on these. You got to get something to hold it down first. Okay. And yes, you can use a drill, especially if you have to do transport, but I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, so bring this down. You may notice that I don't have an Allen key that came with this airplane. They stopped including Allen keys a long time ago. And so, you know, it's probably not a huge issue, but just keep in mind, you do need to have some of these basic tools. And you don't have to have a hand-driven tool set like this. You could actually just have like the L-shaped hex keys, and that's fine. It's just a little bit slower. There's a lot of threads to turn. Mm-hmm. So, back in the day, we did so many of these builds, we ended up with so many of those extra tools that I was able to cut off the tip on a lot of them with an angle grinder and just throw them into a chuck on a drill. Just don't over tighten them. How do you know it's over tightened? You'll know because it'll start to pucker really bad here, okay? Because this is like a piece of plastic here, folks, right here. And that plastic is retaining and pulling all this down. Same thing here, this is a strap of plastic. You can't tell because it's all painted nicely. You can tell because the detail doesn't continue here because that would make a weak point, okay? See the detail on the panel line? Detail's not here, detail's not here. But once you start seeing that pucker all the way around, then you can generally assume that you've got it tight enough. Now in this back half, if I could just find the hole, I want to feel here, and I'm feeling here. Camera crew, show them with one of your good fingers.
I don't have any of those right now.
Feel this? Is it smooth? You see the pucker starting?
Yep.
So you get whichever happens first is what I like to stop at, okay? So if you get a nice smooth finish, but you don't get the pucker, I would go until you see the pucker. There you go, okay? So pretty basic stuff. Now also, on a side note, if you ever do have a servo go bad and you have to cut this tape off, it sucks to get back on, so resist with all of your being doing that. And in the past, if I ever break a servo, which I've only done on Horizon planes maybe 5 or 6 times, I mean, it's been pretty much from crashes. We had one that came down on arrival a long time ago on our Spitfire. It was back in our old house, and I remember taking it out in place and fixing the servo. I pulled apart the gears, fixed the strip gear, put it back in, and took care of it. So we've got all sorts of content like that, guys, from the past on Brian Phillips RC. If you're curious, if you're just getting into the hobby or you're just returning to the hobby, we do you guys. That's what we do here on this channel, is we are trying to reach you guys with not only the latest and greatest stuff. Watch this pop right in there. Oh, that is a gorgeous fit too.
Cool.
But we also want to help you guys figure out kind of how to, you know, get back up to speed. Oh, and I hate that they didn't paint that. That is a bummer.
Yeah.
Wonder if I should take a black marker to it or something. No?
Hey, do you want to glue those on before you put those?
Oh, the guns?
Yeah.
Good point, camera crew. So anyway, if you guys are just kind of new to the channel, that's what we do. We help people figure out how to put these things together, which is usually pretty straightforward. And then we help set up the radio. And that's where people really struggle, is when they're first getting into this or first getting back to it, they have to figure out how to do it. And we're gonna help you do it. Now look at these two guns. You see how the guns are just below the wing? And then they're at an angle, okay? So I think it's pretty evident it's gonna be this way or it's gonna be this way, okay? Now how would we conclude which way they go? Well, first of all, there's dihedral on the wings, but the guns are fairly flat, okay? So what you wanna do is you wanna look at that dihedral. So since I have this plane upside down, it's probably gonna be like this. Now how do we know that's for sure? We slide it in and see how it fits, okay? Now these have a little piercing part that is gonna cut in as this slides back, okay? So if you don't have glue, it's gonna stay in there. I really am disappointed those aren't painted on the bottom, the invasion stripes. But that's fine, we'll just leave it. Okay, so now what do we add to make that stay permanently? Foam to foam, or China glue. If you use China glue, you'll be plenty happy. If you use CA, you'll be plenty happy. It's just whatever you got on hand is fine, guys. This is just a little accessory. Now, you'll see what I did is I stuck it on there. I just kind of gooped it on there. I didn't worry about taking the paint off. I'm not worried about it. If the paint causes this thing to come off, I don't care. I'll figure out a way to fix it at that point. But I got so many planes, it's not a big deal. Guys, this is not a control surface. It's not a safety issue. It's not gonna matter. If you disagree, then get a little bit more sophisticated. Take the paint off with some kicker if you want. You can tape with clear tape. you know, you can do a bunch of different things. If you use Kicker, it will break down the paint, okay? So once you've got that spread just a little bit, what you can do is, I've just got this little Q-tip here. You can take that thing and just make sure you got the correct one ready to go. And then you can just put a little bit of goop in here. Pretty straightforward stuff, okay? So then that gets spread out. Mmm, smells delicious. What? Don't smell your glue, kids. Okay, there you go. If you're a kid watching this channel, you should be getting your parents' permission to watch these channels, because we do all sorts of crazy things. But also, if you're a kid, get to it earlier than later, because then when you go to these big events like Joe Nall, and you see kids that are like 7 years old flying planes that cost more than your family car, then you won't feel so bad, like me. Mmm, smells good. Okay, so what you're gonna do is once that tacks up, see, I'm just gonna show you how sticky it is. That's just from a couple of minutes of just chilling, see? Okay? That's how sticky it is, okay? So it's almost like licking an envelope. You want it to have that consistency. And now that you've got those pinholes from these long skinny things, you can just line right back up with your pinholes and slide it in. Now, I'm not gonna hold up the plane by that, but I could probably hold up the plane by that.
Yeah.
See? I don't wanna slide it off the end either. But anyway, you get the idea. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Now, getting back to what we do here on Brian Phillips RC, we help people build these things. We help people get in the air. We try our best to kind of give you some good advice and help you decide between all the different millions of choices online. Of course, everything online looks as good as you can make it look online. And so, of course, we want these things to look as good as they can look. But at the same time, we don't want you guys to have a bad time trying to determine, is this just fake Chinese marketing? Because that's what happens, is Chinese marketing is always just full of lies and deceptions and misunderstandings, mostly because of the communication between two world languages, and they want to sell stuff. But what we found is that there are 1 million good choices, and there's about another 20 million bad choices, and we want to try to help you guys steer clear of the bad choices. And so what we do here on Brian Phillips RC is we just show you in a similar environment. Not necessarily in the same videos, because these marketing companies, they don't like that. So what we do is we just do the same thing for both of the planes, or all 3 of the planes, or all 5 of the planes. And you get to decide which one you think is better. Now we're gonna let that cook off for just a minute, because we were quick on spreading the glue this time. And so what I mean cook off, I mean like if you were to take and smell this glue again, first of all, don't do that, it's bad for you. It says right there, don't do that thing, whatever that chest hole is. What I mean by cook off is that the chemical reaction, it's going to react with the air and it's going to dry out. Now it's not actually drying out, but it's getting tacked up. Okay, so now this has been sitting here for a few minutes, and as you can see, it will stick. Okay, now that's not tacky enough probably yet, but what happens is it will get a skin on it. With this foam to foam, it likes to get a skin on it. Okay. So once that tacks up, you also notice I put it on both surfaces. That's the easiest way to do it. You don't have to do it that way, but that's the way I like to do it. And once it tacks up to the point where it's gonna stick with touch, it's like a contact adhesive. See, it's still slipping down, so that's not dry enough. While we wait on that, let's figure out where this pitot tube goes. This has like a piercing end on it. Mm-hmm. And then of course you've got the little upward angled thing. And I think, where are they showing it? Gosh, I can't see it on either of these pictures, so you could assume it's on the opposite side, or they just didn't install it for that.
Mm-hmm. I'm not...
Crap, they don't show it, do they? They might actually show it in the manual. Why don't we look in the manual for a minute? But this is probably about time. I gotta get this stuck on here. Okay, so let's go ahead and slide this on. If you wait too long, you'll be very hard to push this in. Okay, seriously. Oh yeah, I got a little bit too much glue on there. See how it pooped out? So what you want to do is just get your Q-tip right out of the garbage can. Don't go get another one, because that would be really wasteful.
Avoiding showing them that part.
So this, just roll it up, roll it up, roll it up, and you're golden, okay? Now, the other thing you can do is you can wait and let that stuff kind of bulge out, and that will happen with time on China glue. So you can see I didn't press that in quite far enough, so I'm gonna flip the plane over real quick. Oh, that is gorgeous. So I'm gonna press this super hard, and it almost looks like, did I screw that up? I think I screwed that up, guys. Because look, I can see gaps here. I think I screwed that up. Let's pull this out.
Ooh.
That is really disappointing that I did that wrong. Okay.
Well, let's try it.
Fortunately for us, it was not tacked up enough to matter yet. Oh, that is definitely wrong. No, I had it
You were
right.
The longer gun goes to the inside.
Well, obviously the longer gun goes to the inside, but what I'm saying is, I'm really disappointed that doesn't cover up better. There we go.
Yeah.
What did I do wrong?
I don't know. It looked lined up on the bottom.
It looked like I was lined up. So folks, I apologize if I misled in any way on that last little series of instructions. What the heck? Did I have them wrong? I don't know. Doesn't matter now. They're in there. So anyway, the glue hadn't set up totally, which is nice. Now, usually the drawing in the manual will show that. It doesn't show it here. See, doesn't show it here. The instructions talk about what hole are we gonna go to. We're gonna go to the outside hole. You can see from this little arrow.
Okay.
Of course, they like forget convenient. This is the page that's gonna show us our radio setup. I do not understand why nobody decided to share this. Just one drawing, folks. Okay, so on the elevator, we want to be on the outside hole. Okay. And the rudder is supposed to be on the middle, but that's already would have come factory installed. I still don't see 65 millimeters from the leading edge, plus or minus 3. So we'll actually talk about that here shortly. So folks, that's really unusual. They almost always show that somewhere. They slip and show you in the manual. So we're gonna pause and look at the box. We found it. It's with the picture of Allie. So it's right here. So if you look, it's lined up with that panel. The second panel line in on what would be our wing with the stars and bars. Okay, so the wing with stars and bars is here, and there's a second panel in is right here, folks. So that makes it quite easy. We're gonna go right in here, okay? And you just kind of force that in and it cuts a hole, okay? That's the reason why we were wanting to make sure we got it right, because once you cut that in, it's in. There's no middle ground, okay? And then what I'm gonna do with the foam to foam is just kind of get that into it. Like this, just kind of on the tip. Hardly any is all it's needed. And this is probably gonna goop everywhere.
Does that look like more than hardly any?
Yeah, I kind of meant to do a little bit less than that, but that's fine. It'll be okay. See, I'm spinning it in as I go. Come on, you can do it. Get it, get it, get it. Okay, so once you're in, you're set. And I believe that arrow usually goes up. All right.
Cool.
Now, I did a terrible job of getting that straight too. What is wrong with my installation today? This is terrible. I'm not straight. Look. Now it's straight with the guns.
Okay.
All right, so moving along, we're gonna finish this build. It's a pretty easy build, like I said, and hopefully most of the stuff I've said has made sense to you. If it hasn't, one thing you can do is watch more of our videos, and things will start to connect when you see me doing them repetitively over the course of a few months or years. Okay, so I wanna put the ordnance on while we can. This is nice, light, easy size to work with. 1.2 meters is a great size class to kind of start with. Maybe your first warbird size might be 1.2, and you're thinking to yourself, well, what about the little small baby 400 millimeters and things like that, 0 over there? Yeah, those are fun, but that's more of like a toy grade. And yes, we do review those too. So if you're curious about those things, check out our website, brianphillipsrc.com, and you can see kind of what's going on there. Looks like these are basically, oh man, that is kind of at an angle. This one looks like it's pretty much square down from the wing. And then this one seems like it's the other direction. That's weird. It's almost like it got glued on there funny. Huh, well, okay. I guess we'll find out if it's an issue later. I doubt it, unless I gave them 2 of the pylons from the other side. All right, so we were interrupting ourselves from putting on the rocket pods earlier because the camera crew rightfully caught that I needed to put these guns on. And we're just gonna push this on just a little bit further, see if we can get that gap closed. That's one of the reasons why you wanna let your glue set up longer if you can, and it's gonna look great. So now from a distance, obviously those minor defects like this gap is not gonna be an issue for you. I guarantee you're gonna forget about it as soon as you see this thing in the air. But we point that stuff out on the channel. Okay, so as suspected, the rudder is attached, okay? So now, normally on a plug-in fly plane, we would not actually do this step at this point, but we're gonna do it on this one here. So we're just gonna take this. Now, if you need to support this, I use 2 fingers and a thumb and hard hold. And then you can spin them. If it doesn't do it, if it spins all the way down the shaft, grab yourself needle nose pliers and hold it that way. But this, all I need to do is go to the outside hole, so it's super easy to do that. Okay, it's on the outside hole now. Snap it in, and then pull this little rubber thing, which is a fuel line that's been trimmed, and put it in the elevator. Once we fire this up, and we get it so that we know that it's not unsafe, we can see the condition of the elevator and verify that we've got it set up correctly. Okay, so I think we're done with the screws for now, but we do need to put on the prop. So now this is a step where you might hold off if you're newer to building, just for safety, because the prop is where people get hurt predominantly on airplanes, because they'll spin up the prop and they don't realize, and they'll go to stop it or whatever, and they get cut. Or they'll have their hand in clearance, not clearing the prop, and they get cut, and that's bad. Okay, so you'll notice that I did that wrong already. This goes on first, okay? See how that has the texture? I believe that goes on like this, but I'm not 100% sure. There will be a drawing, so let's look at the drawing. There's kind of a flat side and a raised side. And I was correct, yeah. That side goes in there first. Then the prop, then this side, which is flatter. And then of course the spinner, which is made of aluminum, I believe. Okay, it might be steel, but I think it's aluminum. So then this slides in. This slides over. Okay, very good. And then if you just kind of hold your prop steady, you can spin this on. Then once you're done with that, you can grab anything that will fit into the hole on the spinner, feed it through. I'm just using a screwdriver. I'm gonna brace the prop and then spin, and that's gonna torque down and act as a nut. That's gonna hold this assembly together and then transfer that torque to the prop. All right, so pretty simple build, easy, basic stuff. The hardest part was putting the foam to foam on the parts and then realizing I thought I had them upside down, which I actually didn't. So that's good feeling. I do not understand what these are for, but I mean, that's okay, because if I knew what they were for, we'd put them on. Are they possibly for the ordnance somehow?
I don't see any additional stickers in the pictures.
Yeah, I don't either. So this is a bind plug. You don't need that bind plug unless, of course, you're using, well, I don't know how you would use another brand transmitter, but you can still force the bind mode without using a bind plug on the newest, latest and greatest technology from Spectrum. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab, in this case, we'll grab, you know, let's go with a 3200 4S to begin with. And this will be a 50C.
Okay.
Now you don't need 50C according to the manual. They're just calling out a 30C, correct?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Correct.
So then we're gonna grab a black marker, pretty basic stuff, and we're gonna grab some digital calipers. If you don't have digital calipers, you can use a tape measure, and you can just do the conversion. So this says 65 plus or minus 3, so that would be 62 to 68 millimeters, okay? That's plus or minus 3. Good. We have committed to not doing math on this channel, and yet we break our own rules occasionally. Okay, so these digital calipers come compliments of one of our amazing long-term subscribers and supporters. So thank you again. It's Tom, right?
No, that wasn't Tom.
No, Tom sent the screwdrivers.
On the plane stand.
Oh, dang it. I knew I was going to do that to myself. I have a sticky note. I feel bad. You know who you are. We've mentioned you millions of times. I don't know how I forgot. 62 to 68. So I'm going to go to 62 to 68. All right, 62. Right now, this is from the leading edge, and you'll notice I'm marking on the top of the wing. And I'm measuring. What I'm doing is I'm watching with my eyes down the length of the wing, because the wing has a little bit of pitch to it. Okay? So make the first mark. And I'll show you if you can't get down the length of the wing, I usually go and I line up at the root. And I try to make my marks about even. Now I'm going to go out to 68. Okay. And then I'm just going to do this. Now, the other thing you could do is you can actually just measure from your first mark, and you can go plus or minus 3 would be a total of 6. So 6 is the other way. So I'm going to do the 6 way. The only bad thing about doing it this way is that you run the risk of carrying over error from your first one. Okay, so there's our 6 millimeter mark. Further back. Okay. And you guys can see those very small dents that I make. All I make is a really small dent, and then I make it really ugly by taking a felt marker and just going right into the hole. And you know what's funny about that? We will be always asking ourselves, did I mark that thing? Did I mark that thing? And it's right there plain as day, but you gotta know to look at it. So it's just not something you're gonna notice.
No.
So I wouldn't worry too much about making a couple of marks. Now, if this was a super beautiful, gorgeous, one-of-a-kind balsa wood aircraft, you might wanna be a little bit more showy about it, but in this case, it's a foamy. Foamies, especially if you're new to the hobby, they do have a bit of a shelf life because you're gonna damage them. And even though they are gorgeous when they come out of the box, after you fly them hundreds of times or thousands of times, they're gonna get some wear and tear. So don't be surprised. The cool thing is they fly just as good when they get a little bit uglified. Now they will, and that's part of the reason why you come to Brian Phillips RC, because I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like these things are perfect and they have no drawbacks. Foam is a great media, but it is not perfect. It has drawbacks. The drawbacks are that. That's the drawback number one. The second drawback is there's a little bit higher density than some other medias. But we've gotten so strong with carbon fiber, steel, aluminum inserts, plastic inserts, balsa wood inserts, basswood, plywood, those sorts of things for wing spars, that we have really gotten some better weighing, lighter, better power to weight, and better wing loading than we've ever had, okay? So pretty exciting stuff. Okay, so what we wanna do is get this thing somewhat level, because the next stage, it might actually make a difference on initiating. Also, I wanna talk about this decal, how it's not pressed down. I'm gonna try to press it down right now. That's the top of the toilet bowl. Oh, sorry, tornado. All right, so we're gonna take our 3200, we're gonna get the center of gravity right. How are we gonna do that? We're gonna stick this in the middle, and we're just gonna throw caution to the wind and test. This is guess and check on the first go around. This is our first go around. So I guess we're gonna find out if we guessed right. Now that shelf liner is gonna hold that battery with just a limited amount of pressure. Now these leads, of course, will move forward and backward. That's gonna make a very minimal impact on our center of gravity and how things relate. But if you want, you can kind of twist your battery leads like this. Also, we need to land our cables as part of the radio setup. So why don't we go ahead and do that now? I'm gonna go ahead and tip this over to the side so it's a little easier to see. And if you bring it right to the edge of the table, then you can do this a little easier. Okay, now how the heck are we gonna know where to plug these things in? There's two ways to know. A, from memory. B, from the manual. Oh crap, look at that. I trapped one of my wires. That's no good. Brian, why'd you do that? That was dumb. I'm gonna see if I can free it, and if I can't free it, then I'll have to loosen the wing. I think it's freed. I got it freed. I just pinched it a little bit in the foam. So it's just foam to foam, so it's not gonna hurt anything. Okay. Of course, the wire is gonna be a stiffer, harder material than the foam. All right, so we have gear. So gear ordinarily would go to channel 5, okay? You can also look in the manual. The manual will tell you for sure. Okay. And then this is flaps. So flaps is gonna be auxiliary 1. I don't like the way these are tangled, so I'm gonna try to untangle them. That's the ailerons. Yep, untangled now. Untangled, good. So this is flaps. Now, how do you know which way the brown goes? Well, if you were looking at a virgin install and you didn't have anything plugged, then you'd look right here, but it's very hard to see, and it would say S, plus, and minus, but you can barely see it in this. So just go from where the wires are. Also, the negative tends to be all the way down at the bottom. Okay, flaps here on channel 6. Let's just assume we're right. If we're wrong, we can easily correct it. And then this is ailerons. So ailerons would be on channel 2 usually on a Spectrum setup. Now all these labels kind of get in the way, but you can see they're numbered in there. So this is on port 2, which is the third set of wires. The first set, of course, is going to be the bind plug, but you don't need that because there's a push button, okay? That push button works once activated, of course, once powered up. Now, they've also gone one step further to make a tube to protect the antenna, which is really nice. This only has one antenna, and it does support some limited telemetry, but it's not considered to be a full telemetry receiver. This would be what we call a flyby telemetry receiver. That means that as you fly by, you're gonna get your data updated, but in my experience, we get data all the time, okay? So now, if you really wanna simulate how this is gonna go, you've got your negative to negative there, you can do this if you're really concerned and you're super anal retentive about the way the wires are gonna go, but I can guarantee you it's not gonna be that sensitive. This plane will fly with a huge variety of packs and with or without the CG correct, or totally correct rather. But you want it as correct as possible for your maiden so you get the best chance for success, okay? So we got a 3200 4S, that's the largest pack that they suggest. I guarantee you can go bigger. We've done a lot bigger, okay? So now we've got these 4 points, and you're like, well, how come you're testing it with the gear down? Well, on this plane, it's indifferent because the gear go in to the inside. Okay, on the front holes, it's tail heavy. On the back holes, it's also tail heavy. So we need to move that forward to make this thing less tail heavy. And what do you mean by tail heavy? Meaning it swings to, the tail goes down to the ground. I can't even like balance it to show you because it's too much. Okay, now watch this. That shelf liner, just to show you how well this works. I can barely move it. Now I've hit the bulkhead. That's a pretty big change for a smaller plane like this. Okay, now we've got that thing closed up, and with ordnance on or ordnance off, you should be very close to the CG. So you're not gonna see a big difference, but you wanna recheck. Okay, so CG on the back holes, it's tail heavy. On the front holes, it's tail heavy. So that's unusual. It's probably not super tail heavy. We're probably good enough there. That's on the back holes. On the front holes, it's pretty much tipping down. Okay, so we're gonna look into this a little bit. Come around, camera crew. So tipping this up so I can get a good view. We'll pull this off. We are definitely hitting what appears to be the bulkhead there, the firewall, if you will. I'm gonna see if I can press harder. Yeah, that is not gonna let me go any further. Oh, that's the motor mount. It's embedded in the plastic there, or it's embedded in the foam. So there's 2 ways you can resolve that. A, you can use a bigger battery even still. You could use a little bit of nose weight. I'm not a big fan of using nose weight, and I tend to think that the CG marking might be just a little bit loose, let's say, on this. So I'm gonna go with 3200 4S all the way to the bulkhead, and I'm gonna throw caution to the wind. I don't feel like that's gonna be a big issue. Now, if you're concerned, if you wanna go straight by the book, go ahead. But you'll see how it tests if you've already seen my Unbox build radio setup. That means that like 1 minute before we actually release the flight footage, and it'll be set up as such. So if it's not good and I say, hey, we gotta add a little bit of nose weight, then you'll understand
you'll see that.
how things turned out. All right, so now we can either cover this up, but we're gonna need this off so we can do our radio setup. So our next move is actually gonna be one of doing the radio setup. So since it's a bind and fly, it's very easy to bind. It's very easy to set up, but it does take a few steps. So we're gonna show you those steps for right now. And the steps look like this. So get your plane in a place where you can be safe, preferably, especially if you're a new pilot, be behind the plane so you can organize and control all the surfaces and see exactly what's going on, okay? So I wanna go to page real early in the manual, usually where you find it. Also, you can see on this spec list, it shows what they recommend for the batteries, okay? All right.
It's actually after the setup.
There we go.
There it is.
So it's on page 7. So this is an NX series. So this is the part you want to go to, and you can see it's going to tell you the step-by-step process to do this. But what we're going to do is we're going to show you exactly how to set it up. Just for memory, the first things first. So we're going to turn on our transmitter. We're going to establish that, that's ironic, P-47 Razorback. Okay, throttle cut is on, meaning this switch H, you can tell it's switch H by looking. Switch H is on, throttle is not up, okay? So I can hit back and cancel, that'll bring you to the system setup or model memory. Model select, scrolling all the way down, add new model, click. That's an acro, you're gonna create, okay? Takes a little bit longer when you get a lot more models. I have, of course, about like 150
This was going to be 162.
162 in there. And okay, so here we are. Okay, model select, we were just there. Model type, we just did. Model name. This is where we're going to type in P-47 Razorback 1.2, and we'll be right back. All right, so we got the P-47 Razorback 1.2 meter. And you're like, why do you always put the 1.2 meters? Well, because when you get like, you know, hundreds of models, you're gonna wanna know which one's which. Okay, so go back and then you can go aircraft type. Normal is gonna become 1 aileron and 1 flap. But Brian, there's 2 ailerons and 2 flaps. Yeah, but there's only 1 channel controlling the pair of them, okay? And then normal tail. And then we're gonna scroll down to the select image, standard image, and then scroll until we see a P-47. There is a P-47, right? There it is, okay. All right, so now flight mode setup. Do they suggest it? We don't actually probably have to do flight mode. Yeah, we don't have to do flight mode. Do we have to?
I don't see it.
No, we don't. But aren't we gonna have to do that for safe? I'm not sure. We'll figure it out in a bit. We'll come back to that. Channel assign, I'm gonna change channel auxiliary 2 off of B by hitting cancel, and that's gonna give us inhibit, okay? So inhibit means that when I go in here to flap system, we won't have a problem with that controlling both flaps and channel 2, okay? Or auxiliary 2. So first thing first, once we're out of system setup, we're gonna go dual rates and expo. Dual rates and expo, we always assign it to switch F for all 3. This is where we deviate from the manual just a little bit. You might find that our way is great. You might find that it's better to do it by the manual. Just depends on what you think. And honestly, we do it the same way every time, which makes this whole process really simple. And then if we have a deviation, we always talk about it. Okay, so this is where we take off. If we need less expo, we can go here. If we want more expo, meaning it's too touchy, we can go here. That also reduces the rates. That means that the amount of expo is higher and the rates are lower. Rates are how much throw is allowed on a surface, and then expo is how much we soften the output at the center of the change. Okay, so if you look here, you can see they've charted it for you. Because we have 20% expo as we move, I'm giving 13% input and it's only giving me 8% output, okay? I'm giving 60% output almost, and it's giving me 43. Now, eventually they catch up to where they're even. Nope, because guess what? We also have rates involved there, okay? So this is gonna be the median comfort level. This is gonna be my bailout if I have too much, and my bailout if I have too little. And then we just replicate that on all 3 of the control axes. Very simple. You don't have to do anything here, but my suggestion is if you have an expensive transmitter that offers features like this, I would suggest using them. It'll make you have a better flight experience, and it's gonna be really easy to set up, and I would suggest you get used to that sort of stuff. Okay? It's also gonna make the plane look cooler while you're flying. A more smoothly controlled plane almost always looks better, in my opinion. Okay. And don't worry about people that say, oh yeah, you shouldn't need those helps, those aids. Yeah, forget about those people. Throttle cut. Let them fly their own planes. You can fly your own plane. Okay, switch H. So now that's on. It's going to go to -100 when activated. So if we look at the throttle, you can see down here it's at -100. As I move the stick, it's not moving the output. That's what we want. Now throttle cut's off and it's live. Okay, throttle cut's on. All right, so the throttle cut's on. As you can see, sorry, I got interrupted by a phone call. And throttle curve we're not messing with, none of that stuff. Now flap system's the next thing. We're gonna set that, in my case, to switch B. I like B because I can get to it. I'm a thumb flyer, I don't do pincer grip, so I have trouble getting to switch D and C. I think normally Horizon suggests using D. I don't like getting to D, is tough for me. Okay, so I just use switch B. This is switch A, it'll be reserved for gear in this plane, okay? So now once we've set it to B, we can acknowledge that, it'll bring up the menu. Now all we have to do is just go into this and it'll tell you exactly how to set it. So it's gonna be switch position 0, that's 100. So it's +100 to -100, so a total of 200% of absolute change, okay? 100% out, 100% in, okay? You can think of it that way. Some radio systems call out their throws a little bit different, okay? So then they say, correction, is there an elevator correction? They don't even show an elevator correction. Okay, so I'm just gonna show the people, 6 and let's do 12. Let's do 10.
Yeah.
Okay, that's probably about right. Speed, 2 seconds, folks. That's what I'm doing. Okay, now if you wanna test this without actually hooking it up, see the flap change, see the elevator change. And that deployment is at the same rate or speed as the flaps, okay? All right, so then mixing, if you're a beginner, one tip you might wanna do is do aileron to rudder so it can automatically coordinate for you if you turn this to on. I don't know why it does that now. The stupid curve thing is always so weird. So if you set it to on, then, you know, when you move your ailerons, there'll be a response that goes with the rudder. Except on curve 0, it doesn't seem to be doing anything. So we're gonna go to curve 1. I need to ask the product development guys about that, how that works. See how it's changing now? So with 100% output, it gives me 15% here, and then -15 when I go the other way, okay? Now, I don't do that anymore. I used to as a beginner pilot. I felt it was really helpful, but now I just coordinate by moving my sticks the same direction, okay? All right, timer's cleared. That's the next thing we gotta set is the timer. So we're gonna go in here. Timer's probably irrelevant, but that's fine. We'll talk about that a little later. Anything over 25%, I want it to activate, and I'm gonna set the timer to 6 minutes by default. Clear's gonna reset it at 1 minute. I want voice. At 20 seconds, nothing. At 10 seconds, I want a countdown, voice, and, well, I'll just say voice. And then expiration, I want tone and vibrate with a tone every minute thereafter. Okay. All right, so once you break over 25%, your countdown's gonna start. You can cancel to clear and reset it. If you go over to monitor mode, you can see all your controls and whether or not they're working the way you want them to. Pretty basic stuff. Throttle cut's on. Okay, so now, did they tell us to rotate any of the controls? Oh, there's your throttle cut to -100, okay.
I don't see anything.
These are see, they separate out their dual rates. I think that's just foolishness. If you're a new pilot, you don't want all that crap to worry about. Okay, they want us to reverse the gear servo. Okay, so servo setup, travel, scroll over to reverse, gear, okay. Now hopefully that means that with this thing here, the gear will be down, and with this thing here, the gear will be up. So gear down, throttle cuts on, be aware, it might open the gear when we start. So we wanna make sure our gear will clear the actual assembly that it's sitting on. In this case, it's this Robart plane stand. Now, if you don't have a plane stand, you can use your wife's towels and blankets. Just be aware when you rip a hole in them, you'll be hearing about it for years as she finds the hole. Okay, so this thing is ready to plug in. Couple things at this point, if you're not sure of yourself, if you have any doubt, just take the prop off. It's really pretty easy. Don't start it like this. Don't start it like this, especially. You end up in the ER if you have a mistake. So make sure you can control the plane. Make sure that the receiver, excuse me, the transmitter is in close proximity. I have mine on, that's okay. You can also have this off, and then while pressing this button, you can power it on. I prefer anymore to click and scroll down to bind, so I'll be as prepared as I can here. But it does time out quickly, okay? So I'm over the bind button. I'm gonna control this plane. If this were to turn on, I could hold the plane while it starts. It will not. If it does, it'll be the first time. See, it timed out every single time. Okay, so we wanna get that wire as far forward. You'll notice it's not doing anything, so I'm gonna press this button. That's gonna wake it into bind mode. Now I can control the plane, but I'm gonna give you guys a simultaneous shot. Scroll down to bind. Throttle cut is on, stick is down. Okay. Light will come on when it's all set. And we're kind of blocking it, but you can see that light's solid, okay? So now we know that it's not running the prop, so we're safe. Now I wanna see if it's still safe. Throttle cut's off and it didn't start, that's good. Throttle cut is off and I'm gonna move the throttle stick. It's moving air. Okay, throttle's off, throttle cut is on and tested. Now that I know that I'm comfortable, I can trust this plane, I can go ahead and close it off and we'll finish the radio setup. Now you'll notice the gear didn't open, okay? The gear switch is in the down position. Gear opened, see it cycled. Now they're down, beautiful, love it. Okay, gear up, okay, very good. Gear down, gear up, gear down. All right, gorgeous, all right? So now let's check flaps. Take off flaps, landing flaps, roll left, roll right, elevator up, elevator down, out of the flaps. And you can see this come back. If you look really close from the side, you can see a little teeny bit of correction. And that's gonna help so the plane doesn't balloon. Now, if we find that we don't need that correction, we'll just take it back out. And there are some other tricks you can do to set up flight modes. And if you attach the flight modes in the different flap settings, you can set up a trim and associate another trim button to the elevator so that in each of those modes you can have trim saved. I don't generally do flap mode for flight modes for flaps, but you can do that and you can separate your trims for each mode. So for instance, if you have a flapper on that's very complicated or a crow or something like that, you can actually have a series of flight modes where all the trims are attached to those three. But if you have another subsequent that's got safe and AS3X and off, it gets confusing because you have this overlap of 3 different flight modes. So you have a matrix of flight modes. So my suggestion is don't use that feature unless you have to. Okay. All right, so you can also see this nifty little smart symbol came up, which is kind of handy. So what does that mean? That means that we can see some telemetry data. You can see the pack voltage, and you can even see the individual cell voltages. Pretty amazing, right? Ah, avian programming. Okay, what's that for? Let's find out. That's probably, let's see if it'll let us in. Up and left, it probably won't. Okay, so it's not letting us in. That's not unexpected because you have to do it within so many seconds of initiation. This is how we set up thrust reverse. If you're not used to what thrust reverse is, just wait longer. It's really handy for making short landings, okay?
Yes.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just quickly unplug this. Now you notice my arm is right where I told you not to do it. That's for the virgin startup. Because now that we can trust the aircraft, we'll go ahead and put it there all day long. Okay, now while it's booting, right here, camera crew, up, left, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, cool. So look at this. Brake type, disabled, normal, proportional, reverse. Brake force, this is where you would set something there. I usually don't do that. But don't tell Horizon you're supposed to set it to like 6 or 7. Okay. I actually want to change that. I want to change that on that other one that is technically not released, so I can't talk about it yet. Oh crap! Well, this will be released. Yeah, this will be much later. Okay, so you can set your settings here. Goodness gracious! So channel 7 is currently set up for that, so that's fine. Because channel 8 would be this.
Master gain.
Wait, do I want that on channel 7? I think I'm going to change it to channel 8. Oh, shoot.
You should be able to scroll back over to the...
See, it's just keeping track anyway. I knew what I was doing. Exit with save. Okay, so now listen for it boot. Yep, so everything worked. Now you can go back in right away if you wanted to check something at this point. Now, channel 8 should be controlling our thrust reverse. So let's scroll all the way back over. Let's click. And let's go down to system setup, disconnect RF, channel assign. Channel 8 is currently set to the knob. Let's set it to switch G. Okay, good. Now let's go back in here and let's go to digital switch setup. Select switch G. Why switch G? Because that's what I'm used to and that's what I'm going to keep being used to. Throttle cut's currently on, so if I move the throttle up and down, nothing happens. Throttle cut's now off. If I move the throttle slightly up, we can feel it's in thrust reverse right now, okay? Now you see the switch? We're in plus 100. There's forward, okay? Throttle cut's back on. So I want to make this, I want to make thrust reverse minus 100. This one's going to be minus 100, so that's forward thrust. And then I want plus 100, plus 100. Why 2 plus 100s and why is it backward? That's just the way they set them up.
Yeah.
So 100 minus and then 100 plus. That means I'm going to have a reverse thrust in any of these conditions other than all the way forward on switch G. And then we'll test and we'll show you exactly what it looks like. Don't mind my timer just went off. Okay. All right, so now when we're in forward thrust, just holding onto the tail, we have forward thrust. Okay. Reverse thrust, watch the paper towels, and also forward thrust. Forward thrust. There's forward thrust. Reverse thrust for braking. Okay, throttle cut's on. Everything's set there. So now you guys have that set too. I'm gonna clear my timer. I'm gonna click and scroll down to forward programming. Gyro settings, safe select. Okay, so it says flight mode 2. So now I'm gonna just move this. Safe select channel. Aux 2. I don't know if that's actually attached to aux 2. So let's go like this. Let's scroll down. Let's go system setup, disconnect RF, channel assign, aux 2, which I inhibited earlier. I'm going to set to switch D. Okay, now I'm going to click, scroll back down to forward programming, connect. Look at that with advanced menus.
Yeah, what is that?
Whoa, that's awesome. That's new. Okay, so save select, aux 2. See how it's changing? Safe select is now on. Flight mode 1, flight mode 2, flight mode 3. Okay, so flight mode 1, we have aux 2. Safe is on. Flight mode 2, AS3X is on. Safe is off. I'm going to turn AS3X off. And then flight mode 3, AS3X only is on, safe is off. But safe is still on, meaning it is designated on compared to being off, while I can turn it on and off with this menu, okay? So now what I want to do is I want to walk out of the menu and I want to go up to system servo setup, travel, reverse, and I'm gonna reverse auxiliary 2. So now what do we have? AS3X only, no stabilization, and auto leveling, also known as safe. AS3X, nothing, AS3X and safe. Pretty cool, let's test it. So, gear up. Oh yeah, it's so cool. All right, so first things first, if I have AS3X on, we have to give throttle over 25% for a short burst, so it'll activate, throttle cuts off. That is really powerful. Throttle cuts back on, okay? AS3X should be working, throttle cuts off, throttle stick is down, just to be on the safe side. Yep, now elevator, rudder up, or aileron up, aileron down. Elevator up, elevator down. Kind of hard to tell, rudder left, rudder right, rudder left, rudder right, here. Hold this, okay guys? So see the rudder? Moving toward me, moving away from me. Moving toward me, moving away from me. Now look at the elevator. A little harder to see. Elevator up, elevator down. Elevator up, elevator down. If you can't see, feel. Aileron up, aileron down. Aileron up, aileron down. Focus on the bottom. Aileron up, aileron down, okay? So we've checked that the corrections are going in the correct direction. Now, let's check safe. So now, it's quiet and there's no change now. That's off. Auto leveling. Finding the quickest route to level. Now that we've leveled, now let's check the elevator pitch axis. Okay, elevators all the way up. Elevators all the way down. And the other way you could tell, the other telltale sign, is when you put this on the plane stand, okay, when you're doing your testing, move the sticks to an extremity, okay, off. So AS3X allows that much travel, safe allows that much travel, okay? So that's another test you can do to confirm that you're in the right mode. Clearing my timer, this plane is ready to fly. We have the ordnance installed, we have the retracts working, we have the takeoff flaps, and the landing flaps, which incidentally, let's look at that. Let's look at takeoff flaps. I like to do this lately. Flap system. So instead of being a 50-50, I want to go to like 35. No, I want to go less. Let's do it like this. So there's our takeoff flaps. Very little additional drag, lots of extra lift. And then barn doors for extra drag. Now, if you'd like to have more throw on there, sometimes you can increase your travel in the servo setup. So you notice how that white box goes to whatever position the stick is in. So if you want ailerons, if you were moving it to one side, it would only control one, or the other side, you can click and then just change that one side at a time, okay? In this case, flaps are in a certain position. Okay, so on that side, they'll keep moving, but you're gonna run into something down there, okay? So if I'm at 130, if you kind of flip your plane over, you can see we're probably binding. Now this is a foamy, so you can kind of get away with this. If this was a balsa wood plane, you would have already probably burned out your servos. But as you can see, we're not really bound. So I'm gonna actually turn that up. So if you see 130, you can go all the way up to 150. I'm gonna go like 145, just so I'm not all the way maxed out. And then there's our takeoff setting and our normal flight setting. Takeoff flaps. Okay, so now I'm gonna go into the flap system and I'm gonna adjust this just a little bit more now that we've opened up the range. I'm gonna go like 30, okay? So here's our takeoff flaps and our landing flaps. Pretty sweet, right guys? We got lots of throw now, which means we should be able to slow this thing down in a hurry and also really go aggressively slow while flying, because that's gonna help us to reduce our stall speed. And if you wanna give them a close-up shot of these retracts, they are absolutely gorgeous, but noteworthy detail. Those oleos are only simulated. They are not actually spring oleos. So on each of those bogies, on most of our recent airplanes, we've been seeing that we have a spring-loaded oleo. That would be nice considering these are pretty hard tires. Okay, so main takeaways on this plane. Gorgeous, like it always has been. 2, another big takeaway. Not much has changed, almost nothing in fact. with the exception of the smart technology, which is gonna give you thrust reverse. Thrust reverse could make the difference between flying and not flying. Look at this thing. Who installed that thing? Goodness gracious.
Geez, all that glue in there.
I know, that's terrible. Okay, so third takeaway, still no LEDs. That's disappointing. But at the same time, not the end of the world. This is still a relatively small plane, but I do think once we start getting into the size class, it makes sense to have LEDs. So complaint number one, no change in the livery. Okay, not really a complaint on my part, but some of you guys might have that complaint. Complaint number two, no LEDs. That's an issue. For some of you, it's a bigger issue, okay? Depends on when you fly. During the middle of summer, it's not such a big deal. During winter, it's a bigger deal because the lighting is a lot worse, okay? At least if you're in the Midwest like we are, okay? Complaint number three, rock hard tires, no change there, and no suspension to help with that. That being said, this is one of the better planes to get up on mains and do some beautiful takeoffs and beautiful landings because it's got really wide landing gear and they're super, good, well set up landing gears. So there might not be a lot that needed to change, but it's a little disappointing to see that they didn't change the things that we would have liked, which would have been LEDs and it would have been some soft tires. Now, things that they really did add, smart technology, which is huge. That is a big deal. Thrust reverse, big deal, huge, okay? Almost bigger than LEDs, but there's a good chance you won't need the thrust reverse on this. It'll just be a handy feature. So that all being said, I have come to really appreciate thrust reverse, especially flying from a relatively small landing strip, and you guys may have as well. But that being said, we also do a lot of flying in times where it's darker. And so because of that, I really would like to see both. And I don't think it's unreasonable to expect to get LEDs. And we are getting flaps, but we also admittedly had flaps before. So that's something that we have been demanding for some time. So thanks for putting flaps in there. Thanks for putting the smart stuff in there. Really wish we would have seen some LEDs, but not the end of the world. You can add LEDs. And if you ever want to add LEDs and you're curious how to go about doing that, I'm going to give you the Cliff's Notes here. Cut this servo out, retape it with clear tape when you're done, okay? You're gonna cut that servo out, disconnect this, pull it up, open the servo, split the positive and negative lines, and then run yourself a wire out to here. And you can actually tap power here because it's already going through a current limiting circuit. You can generally run the LEDs without any additional resistor, okay? It is not without effort. I've done it. In fact, way back when we had the dead on arrival servo that I was telling you about with the Spitfire from years ago, we actually did that plane. We also did this plane for Esteban, if I remember right. We did that together, but I don't think we did it on video at all. So,
I don't remember. But
we have some nice landing lights on that one. We do have links to some basic LED packages, but I have also found that if you get the strips of LEDs, they come in like rolls like this. I'll cut those off, desolder them, and you can get a lot brighter and super small LEDs. So we might have to do a little reinvestigation on that. We haven't added LEDs to a plane except for, I think recently we did one on Hobbies. We had
the Bushmaster.
Bushmaster that we added them to. That was a balsa plane, very different setup. And we used the LEDs from the 90mm Viper. Super good LED set, really bright, also a little bit demanding electrically for this circuit. So I wouldn't necessarily push you hard for that, but you could totally do it. Also, just in looking at this flap here, it looks like we got a little bit of a disparity in the flap deployment. I just noticed that. See how this one's kind of not all the way down? I want to fix that. I'm going to show you guys how to fix that right now. I just noticed it, and it could be just the way that it's kind of lined up. No, I think it's actually a little off. You see this, how it's even here and it's even here? I just noticed this. It's up just a hair. So what you can do is you can take this, slide this back, okay, pop this off. Super easy to do so. And then I'm just gonna unscrew this on the end of this little linkage here. There's 1/2, 2/2, 3/2. Okay, I don't know if that's enough. It might be too much. Oh, that was too much. There's 1 full turn. That looks pretty level. What do you think? Okay, now snap it back on. Just as easy as that, folks. Now, where you're gonna see that being a problem is when you're doing takeoffs and landings and you get into your flaps and then like all of a sudden it feels like you need to trim the plane. it'll actually create like a roll effect, okay? If you ever have one completely fail, like the servo dies or something gets bound up or it's stuck down or it's stuck up and the other one is functioning properly, figure out whichever direction it stops rolling, use your ailerons to fight it, get it into the condition where they're the same position, land it and fix it. You can get away from a crash. But generally speaking, you won't realize what's going on quick enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, easy fix. Super easy. We haven't seen one like that for a while though. So that being said, super excited to fly this thing. Obviously I pointed out a couple of my drawbacks on this plane, but I gotta say, it's gonna be one of the all-time favorites within the Warbird series from E-flite, some of the best ones you can get. It's the perfect balance between big plane, small plane. You get all the features you really need. You can add LEDs if you want. You can change out the wheels if you really need to, although they are a weird size, they're thin. So you're probably better off to try to opt to find something that has a spring-loaded oleo so you can get some spring inside of there. And yes, we have done a ton of planes that have spring-loaded tires, or excuse me, bogies. And I'm trying to think of what might fit there. But anyway, if we think about it, we'll put it in the comments or we'll put it in the description. And that being said, if you want to help support Brian Phillips RC for the little teeny bit of help that you needed, or the lot of help that we provided, whichever one it is, or maybe just because you've been with us a long time and you like what we're doing here, then the best thing you can do, the best, is to buy these planes, buy the batteries, buy the transmitters, buy the chargers, and you'll help support us if you buy them from the links in the video description below. You also help to support us in a way that's not so visible, and that is that when these manufacturers that send out these planes for reviews, they see that Brian puts up a video and then sales happen. Then they say, okay, well, we want to send him more because we're going to increase our own sales. We're going to make more money, right? Great, everybody wins. I like to call it the little RC ecosystem that we're part of, right? We're just one little small piece of the pie. There's a whole nother thing going over here, and we're just this little thing here. But if we can produce sales, whether it's through being truthful about pointing out the fact that there's not LEDs on this plane, and I think there should be, then albeit. But the thing is, at the end of the day, we're never gonna hide behind mistakes or misguided steps or maybe decisions that we disagree with to undermine our relationship, because we serve you guys, not them, okay? We don't serve Horizon, we don't serve E-flite, we don't serve any of the other major companies that we're working with. We serve you, our audience, because really at the end of the day, we've been doing this a lot longer than we were working with Horizon, and we intend to continue even after them. Although they're a great partner, we don't have a big problem with them. There are times that we disagree with some stuff, but it is what it is. It's still amazing plane, and I think you're still gonna really like it, but we don't want you to get it thinking you're gonna experience LEDs, and then you don't, and then you're let down. Because really at the end of the day, there's a million features you can put into a million different planes. And sometimes they're just trying to hit a certain price point. My opinion is the LED is kind of no excuse for that. So that's that. But I think when we see this thing fly, we're gonna quickly forget about the short fallings and we're gonna think about how amazing it really is. So also another way you can help support us is Patreon and PayPal. One-time gifts on PayPal. Remember, we're friends and family, unless you wanna give them like 20%. Yeah, because that's pretty dumb. So, and then also Patreon. Patreon also kind of helps to give you a little easier access if you have comments. We have a hard time keeping up with comments lately. We used to reply to 100% of comments. That was a great time. I loved it. I still love doing it, but it's just like I literally physically don't have enough hours in the day to do it. Yeah. So please don't hate us. Don't think we're upset with you. We're not upset with you. If you're a longtime supporter and you put comments and they seem like they're getting ignored, we can't reply to every one of them. We just don't have enough time.
And we do read them. We probably read all of them.
We don't read all of them. That would be not true. We used to.
We can't, yeah, and we can't.
We can't even read them all because we can't see them all.
Yeah.
Because the replies come back in a different context, and YouTube gives us a tool that uses. It basically goes out and finds all the replies, and they're filtered by response status. And so if we uncheck a box, then we don't see the replies, and that's part of the reason why I try to give you one-liners. And I say reply on a new comment if you have a question. So of course those threads that go back and forth between people, we sometimes we'll have a reply somewhere in the midst and then it just continues on.
Yep.
We don't mean to, ignore you guys. We're not trying to do that intentionally.
Or tag Brian. If he answered your question and asked you another question, then we see it if you tag him.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, just some tips and tricks to help support Brian Phillips RC. really at the end of the day, we just love doing this stuff. So we're gonna keep doing it as long as you guys keep coming back. If you like the long format, let us know. We always question that if we should be editing these things down to 5-minute videos, 10-minute videos, instead of hour-and-a-half long videos. The camera crew is rolling her eyes because she knows how impossible that would be for her. It's already hard enough for us to do this as it is. But the truth is, we love bringing you high quality content that tries to keep moving, but also doesn't go so fast that you can't watch the video and get some help. Also, that being said, just remember, if you're watching this video in like 4 years, it's like 2023. It's like May or March or June. What are we?
It's May, almost
It's
June.
May, almost June in 2023.
June when you're seeing this.
This is gonna be releasing shortly. We don't know the exact dates. We get them early. We can't talk about them before they're early. And then when they release, we of course release at the earliest available date. And then you guys see them. We just want you guys to understand that I totally lost my train of thought.
Well, you're saying if you're watching it in 4 years.
If you're watching it in 4 years, there might be
have
small
changed.
changes in the software or the settings. And so if you do run into a situation, in fact, I had somebody today that I met at Joan All, and he called me up saying he had an issue with a Radian, and we were talking about it real briefly, and I'm like, I think something changed in the firmware on the ESC since null. Or not since null, but since we did our video, it was like 3 years ago.
That's been a while, yeah.
It's been a while, maybe 2 years ago. So sometimes that happens. If that happens, our sincerest apologies. We don't want to mislead. But setup on this thing is pretty smooth and pretty easy, so I don't think you're going to experience that. So hopefully I've hit on all the major points. The major point is, guys, if you want to help support us, buy these things from the links. They're amazing. Also, if you watch the video and you got any good from it, even if you can't support us financially on those different ways, smash the like button. That helps. Click the bell for notifications when you're subscribing and click all so you can see notifications on all the new postings that we put out. The algorithm on YouTube is changing. It has changed. It's always been changing, but recently it's been changing where the recommendations get pushed out differently, and it depends on whether or not you've clicked the all or you've clicked some or none or whatever it is. So when you subscribe, if you click the all, it's going to help you get notified when new content comes. If it's something you don't want to see and you don't click on it, what happens is eventually YouTube decides you're not interested in Brian Phillips RC anymore and you have moved on. It is possible that that's true, but it's also possible that we just reviewed a few planes that you didn't like. So just come back and visit once in a while, or head over to brianphillipsrc.com and you can see where we have our coupons that might help you save a few bucks. Not for everything, it's usually for specific stuff. We try our very best to keep up. There are a lot of them. These vendors are crazy about coupon codes. And it's very difficult to keep up. But the thing is, our links are always gonna help support us, and you're gonna be able to earn your RC bucks and reward program points through Horizon if you're doing that, which I would highly recommend, or if you're doing it through Tower Hobbies or whatever it is, we have links to both. Also, if you can't find a particular plane you want from the list down below, which is just below here, we're gonna have the plane, the batteries, or battery reused, receiver, in this case it's a bind and fly, so we won't list that. And then the transmitter that we picked, which is the NX10, it's been working great. Anything more than that, you're gonna be like way overkill on this plane. You could do the NX8 would probably be about the minimum you'd want on this. We'll link to that, but then there's also planes down below. So if you see that long laundry list of different items we've done in the past, it's gonna show you search results for the P-47. So if there's multiple choices, don't be surprised. You'll have to do a little bit of due diligence to figure out which one you like best. Because sometimes if you pick on a UMX video, like we did the UMX air tractor not too long ago, we'll have the tractor results. So here's the air tractor UMX, the one you watched, air tractor 1.5. Well, which one do you want to get? Whichever one. Maybe this one's out of stock and you really want an air tractor. So that's why we do that. Okay, and if it says Brian Phillips, bprc.me, that's our real links. That's our short link domain that we own. So if you guys see that, you'll understand what you're seeing. Hopefully I've answered all your questions. This is a great plane. I'm sure it's gonna be good. I already know it's gonna be good because I've flown it before, just not my own. It's been my buddy's. So my buddy is gonna be super jealous and I can't wait to show him because it's gonna be super fun to show Esteban. And Esteban, if you're watching, thanks for being part of our little life here of RC. All right, anything else, camera crew?
I think that covers it.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to smash the like button. We'll see you on the next go around. Good job, Horizon. Put some LEDs next time.